Welcome back. We're here again this Sunday with Ernest R Roberts III. Welcome back to everybody that joins us for the Law of Biblical Mechanics podcast. Woo! Episode. We are moving almost to the new year. It's crazy, right?
Yes.
So, Ernest, as you always do us justice with a beautiful opening biblical verse
Sure.
to share with us to get us right for the week.
Sure. So thanks, Ashanti, and welcome back again. It's always a pleasure to do these podcasts. Hopefully, you all are getting some real good insight from a biblical perspective and all of that good stuff. Today, we're talking about kingdom leadership, right? Specifically, servant leadership. Very, very important as we get into organizational development and the like. I want to start off with Matthew chapter 20, verses 25 through 28. Jesus is talking on leadership and he's talking to his disciples. And one of the things he talks about, he basically says that, the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who are great exercise authority over them. Yet it shall not be so among you. But whoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant. And whoever desires to be first among you, let him be your slave, or servant in the Greek. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. So basically, that establishes that leadership is not from an egotistical point of view, or is not from an agenda point of view. Leadership is very critical from the point of view that you want to make sure that we don't mismanage anyone's life, time, or allocated resources. So that is definitely the key, and that's kind of some of the things we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. We're going to be getting into a lot of the leadership.
Yes.
With first, just starting off with when you talk about the servant leadership and working in the kingdom, right? So, like, I know that we had this discussion before where we talked about leaders being people-centered people, and I heard you mention earlier about, eliminating the ego. You can't do that
Right.
with being people-centered. Can we get into what you describe that as in the book? When you say leaders are people-centered and working under that kingdom leadership?
Sure. So again, we'll talk about it at the end, but the law of biblical mechanics, I talk about this in my book, specifically about stewardship. So leadership and stewardship are one and the same, right? So we're entrusted with resources, time, energy, and just the resources and the brain power of other people. And so, again, you don't want to mismanage those things. That's really key. So when you're dealing with people, you really have to understand your staff. You really have to understand the projects that you're working on, and also understand what is the goals that we're trying to achieve. All at the same time, and making sure that you recognize your staff and recognize that the people that you're working with are very complex. Everyone has time, talents, and gifts that definitely is for them, and specifically for them, that can actually make the organization better. And so as a leader, your job is to make sure that everything that's needed for them is provided. I think that's really, really key. A couple of notes that I had about humility and integrity, that leaders, again, must have a humble heart and use a collective approach, utilizing the value, input, and perspective of others. That's important. So when you talk about change management, which I get into the book, and it just keeps coming up, especially in my organization, change management is always a major issue. We're going into 2026.
Yeah.
We're going into new budget seasons. How do we make our organization better? And change management is at the core. So again, we talked about the collaborative approach, making sure everyone is involved as it relates to how that change is conducted, and to make sure that everyone takes possession of their piece of how that change is going to be implemented. And so from a leadership perspective, it's not a dictatorial thing, it's not an ego thing, it's not something that's trying to make me or make whoever's the leader egotistical and things of that nature. You want to make sure that everyone comes up at the same time, and that their resources, allocations, and all of those things are recognized. One of the things that really we have to really be careful. I talked about not mismanaging people's lives, right?
Right.
And so when people spend more time at work or in a business, they spend a lot of time away from their families, things of that nature. The last thing you want to do as a leader, or because of your leadership style, is to cause more stress in that organization. Because what happens is it affects the family, it affects people's personal lives, and it affects their health too as well.
Yeah.
So that's very critical. I don't think people really understand how important that is not to mismanage people's lives, time, resources, and the like. You ultimately, as a leader, are responsible for making sure those things get done accurately and excellent. So
Wholeheartedly agree with that. And yeah, stress management is something that I haven't been to a workforce or a workplace where they're not talking about balancing stress or taking classes or health checks, because it can get heavy. And we have managers that is just out of sight, out of mind in regards to empathizing with their coworkers or employers or employees. So with that being said, I know that we always talk on the humility piece. But in one of the chapters of your book, you get into like being a servant for the Lord as a leader in order to have the humility and take accountability. Can we get more into that part of the book where you speak on being humble and taking accountability in order to serve?
Sure. That's a good point, because humility is not, oh, woe is me. No, that's not humility and trying to downplay yourself. Humility from a biblical perspective is that we as human beings are in charge of this earth. We're stewards of this earth. We're stewards of everything that goes on. People wonder why things are in disarray on the planet like it is. It's because you need to look in the mirror, right? Because we had dominion over this planet and over all of the resources. And from a biblical perspective, you need to make sure that you're doing things kingdom way. That means you're using discernment. That means you're really studying your people. You're making sure that your emotional intelligence is there. And you're also making sure that you're having collaborative meetings, one-on-one meetings. It's very important. I do those. Matter of fact, it's coming up in January as the beginning of the new year. I want to sit down with everyone and look at the good, the bad, the ugly. And they get a chance to criticize me too as well, if necessary, or critique me. We always want to make sure it's a two-way street, because I also want to get better too as well. Or whoever the leader is, you should have the responsibility that your staff and your organization should also be able to give you constructive feedback.
Absolutely.
And that's why you have to put your ego aside, your concepts. You can be thinking I'm doing well and things of that nature, but there's always things that can be improved upon, right? So one-on-one meetings are very important to be able to talk to your staff and be able to make sure, hey, what went well in this previous year, what didn't go well, what do you need as an individual to do your position better? Do you need more money? Do you need more resources, and the like? And I think it's important to have that important feedback. So as a leader, your job is to pray, discern, and to understand your people and understand that everybody is individual. Everybody's not the same. And a lot of times there's some people that you can really get along with really well, and there's some people that you really have to step back and say, okay, how do I need to address this individual? Because a lot of times, and we talked about in the book, the three main ways that human beings learn is observation, association, and teaching. Those are the main things. And some of that could be good and some of that could be not so good. And a lot of that is just from authority figures and things that you've learned, in the past. So you have to recognize that everybody in your organization is different.
Absolutely.
And that's the key. And so, again, as a leader, you have to take the time out to do that. You can't be so busy not to walk around. I check on my people all the time. Hey, how you doing? Is everything great? How's the family? So on and so forth. Those things go a long way when it comes to that.
It does. I think that's what keeps your staff. That's what keeps people saying, that's a great manager, memorable. We're going to celebrate this manager because we appreciate the empathy, because that's what it sounds like. Empathy and sympathy. We can see outside of the workforce. We can see that you have a life outside of these doors, and you might have things happening that doesn't involve you having to be here 100%. You have your days as I might have my days. So I think that takes for someone to be able to walk in someone else's shoes at times, especially in a leadership role. I feel like that is a very key attribute to have. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So you talk about resilience as a steward of the earth, and I feel like they go hand in hand with that. Could you talk about the resilience part, tying in with having that humility and empathy for your staff and the people around you.
Sure. And so when you get to that, I had a couple of notes about that. Leadership is always going to have adversity, and adversity is really being able to push through challenges and being able to get the wisdom of God. I think that's really important. The Bible talks about that in James chapter 1, 5 through 6, where it says that if anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, but let him ask in faith, nothing wavering, because a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And let not that man think he's going to get anything from God from that. So faith is important for me personally, and wisdom is important because there's intellectual wisdom and then there's the spiritual wisdom that you sometimes need to get that goes above and beyond the natural realm. And sometimes you have a situation where adversity comes up, and then from that point, you have to say, what are my options? How do I address this situation? Not from an intellectual standpoint, but from a spiritual standpoint, because we really are spiritual beings having a natural experience. So if I can get the wisdom of God on that situation, which I've done in numerous times in the past, it will cut through a lot of the adversity, or it won't last as long. Let's put it that way. I'm able to come to a conclusion quickly, and usually everybody is like, wow, how were you able to do that? And how were you able to bring all these people together? Because when you have a complex project, you have a lot of moving parts, right?
Yeah.
And communication is key. And a lot of times the communication breakdown is what causes a lot of problems, because from a manager, director, leadership position, communication is about 90% of what you do.
Exactly.
And when I sat back, it's not so much my subject matter expertise, it's how many emails I send, technical memos, how many meetings I have, and how I'm able to communicate some of these ideas to leadership and make sure that everybody's on the same page. Because if you let it slide, it will cause you a problem. So a lot of the adversity that you come up with, dealing with projects, dealing with other issues that come up, is really a communication issue.
Yeah.
So your communication style is there. If you're more introverted, you need to practice being more direct.
Yeah.
And if you're more extroverted, where you always have to get your point across, you may have to dial that back. You have to have the wisdom, in my opinion, of God to understand, okay, what is needed in a certain situation. It's not a one size fits all. When you have a group of people, especially large organizations, and you're the person that's supposed to be leading all of those things, it becomes more and more complex.
Yeah.
So that's key. So your natural education background may or may not teach you how to deal with that. And the crazy part about it is the fact that I don't care how smart or intellectual you are, how many years you've had dealing with certain issues, if you can't get the organization and your people on the same page, and that project fails or something happens, that still is a bad reflection on you. And you need to figure that out. And a lot of times you can't get that from schooling. So get the wisdom, and all I get understanding. So that's what's really helped me out in those situations, especially in adverse situations.
Absolutely. I mean, I love all of what you just said, because you see it. You see it in your everyday working day, with the managers and their staff. And you could tell when it's a good manager that have their staff back. You could tell the loyalty is there. And then you could tell when it's a manager that's power tripping or at odds with their staff, and the staff is miserable, or they're always complaining or unsatisfied. There's no satisfactory there. No recognition for anything, because you're not humble enough to consider your staff as helping you. It's not a you show. That's the biggest egoic thing ever. So I like that you talk about keeping the humility while being that leader. And then also, I kind of tied in, like when you were saying, being able to talk to your staff, take the accountability, for things that happen. There are adversities, but who's going to be accountable for it? Are you going to blame your staff, or is it going to be strictly okay, that was my bad. I should have went through this. I should have did the one-to-one meetings like you were saying every day. We should have met on this subject and cleared it out. So I like that you hit on all those key points. Now, one thing that I did want to get into before we get out of here was speaking on the accountability part, right, as a leader. When the adversities happen like that, say, for instance, you might lose a staff member, and that staff member might report, hey, I was unsatisfied in this job. I didn't feel recognized. I didn't feel like, you know, the manager knew me well, like you were saying earlier. And that manager is at, I didn't know this. Why don't you know that? You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I wanted to get more into like that communication style of taking accountability and then being able to communicate effectively as a leader.
Wow, that sounds like a loaded question there, Shadi.
I know it was a lot, but I know that you had it in your book in some way or format that you could share with us.
Well, let me back up. So let's stay there about this accountability piece, because it's not just on the particular leadership. Sometimes it's on upper management and upper leadership, or the top levels of organizations. Because when you promoting people to leadership, a lot of times the old saying is you want to be careful that you don't promote someone to their level of incompetency.
Oh.
And that's a key point, right? And so upper level management and project management, anybody that's been through the project management professional licensing certification, they talk about that too. It's the mid-level managers, then you have your directors, then you have your vice presidents, and you may have senior leadership, what we call the CEOs and the presidents of organizations. They have to also recognize, who am I promoting?
Yeah.
And a lot of times the trick is, just because, again, I'm going to drill this again, subject matter expertise does not equal leadership. It doesn't. Because what ends up happening is it's a whole different set of skill sets. And so a lot of people get tricked, and that's where the ego and people, you know, you come across, oh, this person is very intelligent, they know their subject matter experts. Yeah, but can you lead people?
Right.
And can you get things done on time, within schedule, and within your scope? And those type of things, because that is what's going to make or break an organization. That's a whole different skill set. And I don't think people a lot of times are ready for that.
Yeah.
So to your point, if somebody comes and says, you know what, I'm leaving this organization because the leadership was not good, you need to have an exit interview with that individual. And it's not to say that they'll stay or they won't change their mind, but you need that feedback. Because going forward, now the organization at the top levels have to figure out, what did we do wrong? How do we promote this individual to a point where they couldn't handle the position, and why didn't we catch it early enough?
Yeah.
And all of these issues that are coming up, if they end up going to HR, going there and complaining about the way things are, what was done about it?
Right.
You know, was that individual, was that director brought in to say, hey, what's going on? Your staff is complaining about you or about the situation. What steps can we do to mitigate this? You want to nip it in the bud early. Once it gets to a point where people are looking to leave and things of that nature, it's a bad stain on the organization. And really, it's a bad reflection on you as a leader, because you should have known better. That's your primary job, is to communicate and make sure things are running smoothly.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that, as they say, the Indians are running the asylum, or the inmates are running the asylum. No. What it is you need the feedback constantly of your staff. Because guess what? At the end of the day, we talked about this earlier, they're the ones that's going to implement what it is that you put in place.
Yeah.
So if it's not done correctly, they're going to look at you and say, you know what? You forced this change management down our throats, and you know, you expected us to do something that was complicated, or that we were trying to tell you that may not work practically. It may be good in theory, but when we try to implement it, it's not going to work. And here's the reasons why.
Exactly.
Matter of fact, we're going to a new software in 2026 for some of my sub department. We're going to a different software, and I need to have meetings with them. I talk to the project managers of the software company, and I want them on the Zoom call, because any issues that may arise, I need to know that. Yeah. Also, I need to know how much it's going to cost, so I can put it into the budget as well. So these type of things I have to get up front, and I got to make sure that my staff is comfortable with the change that I'm bringing. Because at the end of the day, you know, again, we talk about sabotage, and let's be real, a lot of people, you know, they get, you know, it's conflicts that rise all the time. Absolutely. And you have to stay on top of that. So to your point, I think adversity, when it happens, you need to identify the adversity, identify the change, and figure out what needs to be done. And again, get constant collaboratory feedback from your
Yes.
staff. I think that's very important. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And don't take it personal.
Well, right, that
Because I
part.
think that's another thing, like, the personal thing.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it'll be like your ego is being attacked. Because in your head, you're doing your big one.
Yes.
But to them, you're doing your small one. Okay?
Right.
So when they come to you with the truth,
Yeah.
be able to hear it, take
Sure.
it in, and say, okay, that's a growth for me. Like,
Yes.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that that's how you saw it. Let me see some strategies that we can work towards
Sure.
improving this perspective or project. If I didn't handle it correctly, let's see how we can sit at a table together and figure this out together then, because I didn't know that it wasn't good on your end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like taking it in humility, like you say,
Yeah.
or in confidence, rather than like, what? What'd you say? No, I didn't. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so that happens. But I do appreciate all that was said today, Ernest. So we are going to end it here, as we always do, just wrapping it up with how people can get in contact with you,
Sure.
what we have coming for the next month. We are in the fall winter season, so
I can't believe it's already.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
The Thanksgiving is literally a week away, and I can't wait to jam on the ones with the food. Okay, but in the meantime, can you just leave the audience with some contact information,
Sure.
additional resources that you can provide as well?
Sure. So actually, the book is doing very well. Actually, it's on Amazon Kindle. It's The Law of Biblical Mechanics, Principles and Processes for Management and Stewardship. We spent over a year putting this together. We wanted to make it in such a way where it was a good read, a quick read for folks, and they can go back to. This is going to be a reference manual for a lot of the content that we talked about.
Yeah.
You really need to get this book. It's definitely there. Also, my website, www.rcepllc.org. And we're looking in 2026 to do more speaking engagements, more organizational outreach. Ashanti's already been busy on the phone with different folks, and I have a couple of leadership conferences that I'm looking to do. It's very important. Why is it key? It's key, again, as summary, is because leadership, management, stewardship, to me personally, has always been from a spiritual and biblical principle setting, right? And so it's key because it'll take you above the natural realm of what you're normally used to, and to be able to get up into the area of wisdom, knowledge, and to really have a situation where you can really be successful in these things, because organizational development is the key and the linchpin to everything else that you have in any organization, whether it's relationship, family-wise, and the like. And I think people really, really, really need to get a hold of this. So I'm excited about it, and I'm excited for 2026. I call it 2026 the year of the fix.
Oh,
And
I like that too.
yeah, there's a lot of things that in people's lives have been broken or have been on delay. And so we're looking to whatever's broken, and we're looking to get it fixed and to get people to understand these principles, that get it working in your life and practice these things. Don't be a hearer of the word only, but a doer as well. So I think that's key. So we're looking forward to moving forward and having more opportunities to do more speaking engagements. I also do consulting as well, personally. So just let us know, reach out, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely, definitely. So here every week. We'll be on Instagram as well. Thank you for tuning in. Another great session with Ernest. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
And we look forward to meeting again with you all out there. Stay safe, enjoy the holidays, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
So see you. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Peace.
Peace.